for joining us tonight on another episode of The Racing Report. My name is Rob Peeters, and I am your host for another fabulous little half hour where we are going to talk all things motorsports, because we had one heck of a weekend in Darlington for the NASCAR Cup O'Reilly Auto Parts Series and the Truck Series. Cup Series was bringing a little bit more horsepower and a little bit of a different tire to that race, and I think it made all the difference. We had a bit of a classic NASCAR Cup Series race at the Lady in Black, but then we also had Justin Allgaier winning his 30th career O'Reilly Auto Parts Series race. And then we had Corey Heim making a last lap pass to win the Truck Series race on Friday night. That was another thriller. Taking fresh tires made the difference there. But again, that wasn't the only racing we had this weekend. We also had Formula E in Madrid for their Madrid E-Prix. It was a 1-2 finish for Jaguar. And then we also had the 12 hours of Sebring, the second race of the IMSA WeatherTech Sports Car Series. And Penske Porsche is starting off 1-2. So not only is Penske Porsche starting off with quite the start to the 2026 season in IMSA, but then also we've got Tyler Reddick, who's now won 4 out of 6 NASCAR Cup Series races so far this season. Lots to talk about this week. And before we do that, as always, please remember, if you like the show, go ahead and give me a follow on social media. You can do so by looking up at rpeters33, and then make sure you have the handy-dandy little WTHR Plus app installed on your smart TV, because you won't want to miss a single episode of the Racing Report each and every week. So let's go ahead now and get right on into the news of the week. We'll start off, as always, in Formula One. And some big news happened just after we recorded our show last week. Jonathan Wheatley has left Audi's Formula One team to replace Adrian Newey as Aston Martin's team principal, while Newey is going to move to a more, quote, technical role with the team. Now, Wheatley initially was said to have left the team due to personal reasons, but was later linked to Newey's replacement at Aston Martin. Now, Mattia Binotto will serve as Audi's team principal following Wheatley's departure in the interim, so some big shakeups there. Of course, the question now becomes is, how does this affect Aston Martin? Does this help them fix the problems with their car? Because as we've seen, Fernando Alonso, we talked about last week, dealing with potential nerve damage if he continued for longer than he did in China. And we've got another race coming up this weekend in Suzuka, and I have to wonder how Alonso and Stroll are going to manage it now. But of course, after this race, they do have about a month-long break to hopefully fix the problems. And we'll see if maybe a new team principal fixes that. Of course, Adrian Newey is remaining with the team right now. And it'll be interesting to see what happens when we get to Miami at the beginning of May, and if Aston Martin has solved their problems. And hopefully these drivers can safely compete in a full-length Grand Prix. Now, speaking of Aston Martin, it's important to note that Fernando Alonso will not be at Suzuka both Thursday and Friday. Now, by the time you're watching this, it doesn't matter that he's not there by Thursday, but I digress. American Jack Crawford, who is also the Aston Martin reserve driver, he's going to drive in free practice 1 in place of Alonso. Now, Alonso's not taking part in free practice 1 because he's going to be with his partner for the birth of their child. So that is big news. Congratulations to Alonso becoming a dad, but also good, I guess, a good deal for Jack Crawford. Runner-up in F2 last year. Now running an Aston Martin car that may or may not cause nerve damage to your hands. Godspeed. But anyway, moving on into the next piece of Formula One news, Mercedes has appointed Bradley Lord to serve as deputy team principal. He will assist team principal Toto Wolff. Now, Lord joined Mercedes in 2013 as its communications manager, and most recently served as the team representative and chief communication officer. So there's some team personnel news there from Mercedes. And then finally, I wanted to touch on this real quick. This is highly rumored right now. Please take this with a grain of salt, because the only place I've seen this be reported so far is in Dutch media, but that same Dutch media, at least a couple different sources have reported the FIA is considering adding Formula 2 and Formula 3 to both the Miami and Canadian Grand Prix coming up here in May. Now, if it ends up being the case, if these rumors turn out to be true, that would cause quite some problems for Colton Herta. As we talked about last week, he may or may not be able to run the Indianapolis 500 coming up here in a little over 2 months' time. But if there is a Formula 2 race in Canada, he will not be able to, because that race will clash probably with the start of the Indianapolis 500, given the fact that we already know that the Canadian Grand Prix will not go green until probably the Indy 500 is either done or close to being done. And that would just make it impossible for Herta to be able to run the Indianapolis 500. So if those rumors do come to fruition, we'll definitely be sure to keep you updated here. But right now, take those with a grain of salt, because only Dutch media so far is reporting that. But that was actually a good segue as we now move into the IndyCar portion of the show. And some news here that broke very recently. IndyCar has penalized Kyffin Simpson over a week after a late race crash involving Simpson, Nolan Siegel, and Roman Grosjean at the end of the Grand Prix of Arlington. Again, this was about 10 days after the race was even done. Now, Simpson was given an avoidable contact penalty, and that dropped him from 19th to 20th in the final finishing order. Now, that also moved Felix Rosenqvist up to 19th, but again, it didn't really affect much. Both drivers maintained their positions in points, as it was only really a 1-point difference for both of them. But definitely some interesting news that IndyCar handing down this penalty over a week after it happened. But also in the world of IndyCar, Ed Carpenter has unveiled his livery for the 110th Indianapolis 500. Carpenter will have primary sponsorship from SlimFast, in addition to, of course, Splenda and Java House, owned by Ted Gelov. And he will also have associate sponsorship from AES Indiana and Hatch, which is an organization working to fight hunger. So that's all the news really right now going into the world of IndyCar. Of course, we do have the Barber race coming up this weekend, so maybe we'll get a little bit more. But right now, that's all we have for IndyCar news this week. And that brings us into now Formula E news, because in the world of Formula E, again, a little bit light in that world, but DS Automobiles has announced that it is exiting Formula E at the end of this season, and Stellantis, the parent company to DS Automobiles, says that Opel will replace DS in the championship beginning next season. So Opel, if you're not familiar with Opel, that's okay. They have not been in the United States since the 70s. My dad, before he passed away, liked to talk to me about how he owned an Opel when he was a young kid, a teenager back then. Obviously bought it used. He graduated in '84, but obviously bought the car used and enjoyed it, loved it, always talked highly about it. But this will be one of their first motorsports entries in quite some time, I believe. I think you'd probably have to go back to whenever they were last in DTM, I think, probably, or maybe they were in other series, but the only one that's coming to mind right now is when they were in DTM quite a while ago. But now, with that news, it is currently unknown whether or not Opel will join Penske Autosport, the Dragon Penske, Jay Penske. This is not Roger Penske. This is Roger Penske's son, Jay, who owns the DS Penske team in Formula E. If you're familiar with Jay Penske, or maybe you're not, previously the Dragon Racing team was in IndyCar before they left at the end of 2013 to run in the Formula E season, to start the Formula E. They've basically been in Formula E since the beginning, and so now it'll be very interesting to see what ends up happening here, what the future of that Penske Autosport, not Team Penske Autosport team is looking like here for Formula E next season. We'll be definitely sure to bring that to you as soon as we know. But that is it for the open wheel segment of the show this week. And but that's not all. After this break, we're going to talk about some of the news in Supercars and a lot of news to discuss in the world of NASCAR. Lots coming up here. So again, more reasons to stick around coming up here after the break. So more Racing Report after this. Don't go anywhere. Welcome back to the Racing Report. My name is Rob Peeters. Thanks so much for sticking with us through that break. Let's go ahead now and jump right on into the world of Supercars. We don't have a lot to talk about because their next race is still a couple of weeks away, but this was a very interesting piece of news that surfaced over the past week. V8 Sleuth, which is a great website, highly recommend checking them out if you're a fan of Supercars and are looking to get additional Supercars news. They're reporting that Supercars has discussed the possibility of bringing a, quote, NASCAR-style demonstration to the Gold Coast 500. However, V8 Sleuth also reports that recently this topic has, quote, gone cold. So whether or not this is actually going to happen is TBA at all. Now, it's interesting to think about this because the Gold Coast 500, or previously known as the Gold Coast 600, has typically throughout its history had international flair. Obviously, you had IndyCar or CART, the Champ Car Series, and then the unified IRL run there up until 2008. And previously, you used to have a requirement that international co-drivers needed to be in the event. That was back when it was an endurance race. But now that it's basically been broken down and is no longer an endurance race, and the track has been shortened a little bit, the series is, and the promoters and everybody, they're looking at it and they say, well, maybe we should get some international flair back. And they're apparently looking at a NASCAR-style exhibition of some kind. Now, it's unlikely that this would be a points race by any means. It very well could be just a couple of Gen 6 or Gen 7 cars, I should say, running around the Surfers Paradise circuit, or it could not come to fruition at all. As V8 Sleuth says, those discussions have gone cold. So, but it's very interesting still to see that they are exploring this, and maybe we could see some sort of American motorsport at the Gold Coast at some point in the future. But at this point, it's still very, very wishy-washy and up in the air, but definitely still an interesting piece of news to discuss in the world of supercars. But with that said, that's also a very good segue into our next segment, because now we got to get talking about the world of NASCAR, and we've got quite a bit to go through this weekend. And we'll start with the news that Denny Hamlin spoke during a press conference this past weekend at Darlington, in which he said he'd like to retire by the end of 2027, but also said that it depends on how the pieces fall into place. And he says he's given Joe Gibbs Racing enough heads up and that the team has already started prep for the future. So succession plans appear to be in the works for Denny Hamlin, who says he'd like to step away from full-time Cup racing at the end of 2027. Unknown if that will actually happen, but at the very least, we may or may not know a time when Denny Hamlin's career as a full-time NASCAR driver is coming to an end. And obviously, I can't really say that I blame him given everything that he's been through over the past several months, losing his father, and going through the lawsuit and being a team owner and everything that goes into that. And let's not just forget, he didn't just lose the Cup championship last year as a driver. He also lost it as an owner. And I think that really took its toll on Denny from a number of different cases, a number of different ways, and I really think that it might be time for him to potentially step away, though I do think that he's not ready to step away until he does win that championship. So again, like I said, all of this is going to have to see. Maybe he races past 2027, maybe he doesn't but at this point, he has now told the media that he has informed Joe Gibbs Racing that 2027, the end of 2027, is when he'd like to retire. Now, also in the world of NASCAR, this was very big. If you watched the past weekend's Cup race at Darlington, you know that they were running a little bit higher horsepower, a little bit of a different tire combination as well, and it produced some really, really fun racing. We saw a lot of comers and goers. A pit strategy, tire wear really mattered, and it was a lot of fun to watch. Now, during the recent episode of Hauler Talk, which is NASCAR's own little podcast, the vice president of race communications, Mike Ford, said NASCAR is considering adding additional horsepower to Cup cars at tracks longer than 1.5 miles, but also said that this is unlikely to happen this season. So we'll have to taper our expectations right now for them potentially upping the horsepower for a race like Kansas coming up here in a couple of weeks. But at the very least, the topic is on the table. NASCAR is considering it, and I think after everything we saw at Darlington, I really do believe that it might not be a bad idea to do that. Granted, the current Gen 7 cars races on mile-and-a-halves are fantastic, but I do think it could help some of the 2-mile ovals like Michigan a little bit more. So we'll have to see what comes of that. Hopefully, maybe we see upped horsepower across all tracks beginning next year, because definitely it's looked pretty good at COTA, and it looked pretty good at Darlington, and we'll see what the test comes out here at Martinsville if that increased horsepower does make for a much better short track racing package, at least for NASCAR standards. Now coming off his crazy start to the NASCAR Cup Series season, The Athletic is now reporting that 23XI Racing and Tyler Reddick are nearing a contract extension that would keep him with the team long term. Now, the exact details of this remain unknown. We don't know how long that proposed contract could keep Reddick in a 23XI race car, but at the very least, we do know that team owner Denny Hamlin says nothing has been signed, but he is confident that a deal could be reached soon. And obviously, if you're winning 4 out of the first 6 races of the season, it's pretty easy to get started on contract talks, because boy, you just don't want to do anything to taper that momentum for sure. More NASCAR news here now, talking Grammy Award-winning musician Darius Rucker of Hootie and the Blowfish has joined the ownership team at Legacy Motor Club. He basically revealed this on an episode of the Dan Patrick Show, and good for him. You know, this is a good investment, I think, of money for Legacy Motor Club as they continue to try to keep up with the rest of the NASCAR field. Not to say, and they have 2 good drivers, really, Eric Jones, John Hunter Nemechek, but just struggling to get those results. Maybe a little extra cash from Mr. Darius Rucker could help them, but he's joined the ownership team and has invested in the team as well. So we'll see what that comes of that. Now, moving on into some driver news, Luke Baldwin, the son of Tommy Baldwin Jr., grandson of Tom Baldwin Sr., and 2-time reigning Smart Modified Tour champion, is going to make his O'Reilly Auto Parts Series debut this weekend at Martinsville. He's going to drive the number 5 Ford Mustang for Hettinger Racing. Complete off topic real quick, but I just said number Ford, and that was clearly a Freudian slip. At this point, nothing surprises me, because I was watching the High Limit series over the weekend, and Brad Sweet is driving a car letter W. It's not a number, it's a letter. Brad Sweet is driving letter W in High Limit sprint car racing right now. All right, then. Anyway, so maybe we'll see a number Ford sometime, but no, he's driving the number 5 Ford Mustang for Hettinger Racing. Meanwhile, also coming up this weekend at Martinsville in the O'Reilly Auto Parts Series, Brad Perez is going to drive the number 42 Chevrolet for Young's Motorsports, so good job, Brad. Shout out to Brad. And then finally in the O'Reilly Auto Parts Series, I guess, we should talk about Jake Finch was announced as the driver of the number 9 Chevrolet for Junior Motorsports beginning at Atlanta in July in the O'Reilly Auto Parts Series. He will also race at the fall Darlington, Bristol, Charlotte, and Talladega races. So, good job there. And remember, this does not start until after July, so all those races I just mentioned are not the upcoming races, but rather the ones coming up in the fall. Important to note. Now in the Truck Series, Corey LaJoie will once again drive the Colleague Racing's free agent truck at Rockingham coming up here in about 2 weeks. So he drove it at Darlington, and he's going to drive it again at Rockingham. And this is our free agent. This is, I don't know. I talked about it on my podcast, Racing with Rob and Roller podcast. We discussed whether or not the free agent program for Colleague Racing has run its course. You can listen to that wherever you get your podcasts, and let me know what you think, if it has run its course, or if maybe I'm just bitter about Corey LaJoie getting 2 straight drives in the free agent truck that I thought was at the very least supposed to go to up-and-coming drivers and not drivers who have raced multiple seasons at the Cup level. But I I digress. Final piece of NASCAR news here before we take our second break of the show. Camping World is returning to NASCAR to serve as a supporting partner of the upcoming NASCAR race at the Coronado Naval Base in San Diego this summer. So, return for Camping World. And that's kind of interesting to think about, because the only reason I say this, and take this with a grain of salt, I'm just putting two together. I'm not trying to report anything. I'm not trying to insinuate anything. But it is very interesting that Craftsman and NASCAR are apparently struggling to get a deal together to renew their sponsorship of the Truck Series, and now Camping World is suddenly back in NASCAR and supporting the Coronado race. Again, could be nothing, could be something, who knows. Either way, we're going to take our second break before I go way overboard. And when we come back, we're going to recap the races from this weekend. Obviously, NASCAR in Darlington, the Formula E race in Madrid, and the 12 Hours of Sebring. And we're going to get you caught up on everything you need to know before this weekend's racing. So don't go anywhere. You are watching The Racing Report. Welcome back to The Racing Report. My name is Rob Peeters. Thanks so much for sticking with us through that break. Boy, again, like I said at the top of the show, we had one heck of a weekend of racing, and I'm just glad we got to see all of it. We just no rain delays, no nothing like that. It was beautiful sunshiny skies everywhere. But first of all, let's talk about the first race of the weekend, the Truck Series race at Darlington. Corey Heim was in a race after winning a record amount of races last year and the championship in the Truck Series. And boy, did he pick up right where he left off. He's not been running full-time in the Truck Series, but had a late race caution. Corey Heim came down pit road, decided to put 4 fresh tires on it, restarted 15th, and drove up and passed Ross Chastain on the final lap to win at Darlington. It was just a thrilling race, and that's how much tires matter, and that's what I think all NASCAR fans, including myself, like to see, is a race where tire wear and tire management matter. And in this case, everybody who gambled and stayed out on that final caution was punished, whereas Corey Heim was the big benefactor. He got to pass everybody, and honestly, to go from 15th to 1st at Darlington in just a couple of laps, what it was essentially a green-white checker, is very, very impressive, and it just goes to show Corey Heim's talent and why it's so surprising he doesn't have a full-time ride in any series right now. But still, great win for him in the number 5 Tricon Garage car, not the number 11, which was driven by Caden Honeycutt, who, let's be honest, also had a very good shot at winning this race. I thought he was going to until the very end. But in general, just a fun Truck Series race at Darlington. And NASCAR followed it up the very next day with the O'Reilly Auto Parts Series. Justin Allgaier, like I said at the top of the show, winning his 30th career O'Reilly Auto Parts Series race, holding off and then driving away from Brandon Jones in the final laps. Now, Brandon Jones finishing second. Of course, he won that race 1 year ago, but still having himself a pretty good points day is always good, especially when wins aren't necessarily as important as points are nowadays. So I think if you're Brandon Jones, getting a good points finish is really all you can ask for, especially given his luck the last couple of weeks in general. But overall, great job for Justin Allgaier. He surpassed Joey Logano, actually, on the all-time wins list for the O'Reilly Auto Parts Series with that victory at Darlington. And now let's talk about the Cup Series race at Darlington, which was equally fun and enjoyable. Again, like I said, tire management mattered. Tire management mattered, and we really showed how crazy things can get when it comes down to pit strategy at the very end of the race and when it comes to tire management. Now, obviously, it looked like I would have said that the 2 RFK cars of Brad Keselowski and Chris Buescher were the 2 classes of the field all race, but no, it was Tyler Reddick who had an alternator problem in the beginning of the race, who came back without a cool suit and won at Darlington. Now, again, like I've said most of this show, that's 4 races in the first 6, which is very almost unheard of. It was unheard of when he won the first three. That was a record. And now he's won another. And I don't know if he's ever going to stop at this point. And it was a great point staying again for 23-11. Of course, Bubba Wallace got involved in an incident later on in that race. But Riley Herbst rallied back, finished, I believe, in the top 15. So all things considered, 23-11 is showing that they are here and they are one of the top teams in NASCAR, and it'll be very curious to see what happens coming up this weekend at Martinsville. If maybe Tyler Reddick can keep that streak going, maybe get another top 5, maybe finish second, who knows. But even though he's got a really, really big lead right now in the point standings, everything can change, because as soon as they leave Daytona, those points are going to reset, and any advantage that Reddick has is pretty much gone. But he still should have a good shot at the title, in my opinion. Now, in Formula E, we had Antonio Felix da Costa leading a 1-2 finish for Jaguar ahead of teammate Mitch Evans. And I thought it was a really great race, another fun race of Formula E, especially on a permanent circuit. And apparently, according to rumors, next season we could have a lot more permanent circuits. I'm hearing Brands Hatch is a possibility as well. Very excited to see the future of Formula E, especially after a fun race this past weekend. Also, in this weekend, we had the 12 Hours of Sebring, and like I teased at the top of the show, the Penske Porsche team of Felipe Nasser, Lauren Heinrich, and Julian Andlauer have won the opening 2 races of the season, and that's fairly impressive. Can anybody stop Felipe Nasser at this point is the main question. But elsewhere in classes, United Autosports won in LMP2. Those drivers were Mikael Jensen, Phil Fair, and Hunter McElrea, former Indy Next driver. Mathney Racing won in the GTD Pro category, and then of course, USA with Antonio Fuoco won in GTD. So now let's take a look here real quick at some of the races coming up this weekend. We got Formula One, the Japanese Grand Prix coming up this weekend as well. That should be a very fun one. Always love a good race at Suzuka. Very curious to see what comes down, if Mercedes keeps their advantage, or if maybe Ferrari can eat into that a little bit coming up this weekend. But then we've also got MotoGP. They're in Circuit of the Americas this weekend, and only reason I'm talking about that is because they had a very bizarre incident over the past weekend during their race in Brazil, where the track developed a sinkhole. Yeah, there was a sinkhole in the track where MotoGP was this weekend. That caused several delays, but eventually they were able to get it fixed and the race was run without any problems. But I digress. Still a crazy piece of news in the world of racing. Not every day you have a sinkhole develop in the middle of the circuit. But then IndyCar is back after a week off. They're in Barber. The Indy Next Series is also there. They're going to have a doubleheader. But always love a good race at Barber in the IndyCar Series. That's a beautiful track down there in Birmingham, Alabama. And then NASCAR finishing up. They've got the Cup Series and the O'Reilly Series, no Truck Series, this weekend at Martinsville. So that is it for this weekend's Racing Report episode. Again, thanks so much to everyone who tunes in every single weekend. We really appreciate your support, and we really appreciate everybody who watches. So, for WTHR Plus, my name is Rob Peeters, and this has been the Racing Report.